Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Hayden Greene, and you're here for another. Oh, a little bit of wobbly there. You're here for another episode of Photography with Hayden, and I am still waiting for somebody to come up with a better name than Photography with Hayden. But we're gonna go. We're gonna have a really quick one. It is beautiful outside, and I know there are probably zero people who are watching this. Hey, what's up, Steve? And I just wanted to go through a couple of different things that are pretty amazing about photography, and that a lot of people, and I'm looking at the people who are logged in here, and they should be logged into another meeting that's happening right now, as should I. But we can all multitask. So one of the things that we love about photography is that, again, you are spending an entire time with photography trying to get the people who are looking at your work to focus on a particular thing, one or the other. And so we've gone through a number of different techniques. We've looked at the holy triangle. We've also looked at the rule of thirds. We've looked at the rule of threes, the rule of odd numbers. And so there are a bunch of different ways that we have already looked at that you can bring people's eye to a particular place in your photography. And so the next one that we're going to talk about today is what is called minimalism and negative space. And so when we start to talk about those two things, again, these are just two other techniques that we're going to go over. And we're going to be brief today. Two other ways that you can two different things that you can do in order to make sure that your pictures, your subject comes out and everybody is paying attention to it. As always, if you are interested and you are getting a tip, like I always say, if you're getting a tip, you should leave a tip. So I'm gonna put the Cash App up there, and we're gonna pin that, and so that if you're interested in what you're seeing or interested in what you're hearing, feel free to jump in or leave a tip. So let's get started. All right, so as always, my name is Hayden Greene. I am a photographer from Brooklyn, and I've been doing this for a very long time. And again, I taught myself everything that I know from either the internet or from random classes or just friends. And so if I can teach myself, I can teach you, and then you can go learn and be far better than I ever will be. All right, so let's get started. The first thing I want to talk about is negative space. So negative space has this kind of sci-fi attitude towards it. So when you hear the word negative space, it kind of feels like you're talking about like black matter or dark matter or something like that. And it's not really that. Negative space is really the space where nothing is really occurring. Nothing is happening in a picture. And it could be just a blank wall. It could be just a clear sky. But it's a place in a picture where you don't see a lot of action. You don't see a lot of things happening, right? And so, and I've got a couple of pictures here. And I'm going to be using pictures from my book, Life Lessons from a Professional Imposter. It's the last book that I put out. So if we look at this picture right here, so you've got street, you've got buildings, and look, you've got your leading lines, good old leading lines like we talked about last week. But this space in here, this is all negative space, right? This is all negative space. And so here's where nothing is really happening. And because nothing is happening here, it makes you want to look at where there is stuff, right? And so we're going to talk about what negative space is, and then we're going to talk about minimalism, because minimalism really utilizes that whole negative space thing. So that's one way of looking at negative space. Here's another. And so what I want to do is I want to bring you up to, I want to make sure you understand negative space. So here's a picture of the Empire State Building. I have to check that for a second. Here's a picture of the Empire State Building. All right. And so, as you can tell, all of this is negative space. All of this is just clean, blue sky, and even if there were clouds, and I have another picture where there are clouds, and I'll show you that as well. All of this is negative space. So the main idea here, the main subject is smack dab in the center, and this is what we want you to focus on. Okay? And so with the negative space, as you can see, you can put whatever it is that you're interested in having people pay attention to in any part of the picture, because there's nothing else happening in that picture, right? So you're utilizing the negative space to be very like a signpost, like look here, don't look anywhere else, right? And when you look, and you can also utilize negative space to give a sense of either motion or direction of focus. And that's looking at this picture as well. So if you look at this picture, all of her negative space is over here, right? And it gives you the sense that she is looking off into the distance, right? This would have been a very different picture if the negative space was behind her and she was looking out this way. It would have been like, well, what's happening off camera? It gives you a sense of what I should be paying attention to, and more importantly, what the subject is paying attention to in this particular picture. So you've got all of this negative space over here, and this is where you see the subject looking into. So you have this sense of, you know, what's happening over here, giving the subject a sense of a story. And so we use negative space in a number of different ways. And one of them is to draw attention. But the other way that you use negative space, well, to draw attention, but the other way that you use negative space is really to tell a story. So you've got this picture right here, and now I'm leading you up, and I want you to stop right at the carousel and at the parachute. So I've left a lot of open sky, a lot of negative space up here, which is me telling you, don't go any further than this. Because I have leading lines, but I want you to just pay attention. I want you to stop right here. I don't want you to go any further than this. And so I've loaded up the picture with a bunch of negative space on the top. And that's one of the techniques. And again, it's just another way of getting people to pay attention to what it is that you want them to pay attention to. And so that's one of the really great ways of using negative space. And you'll see a number of different ways of utilizing it. You'll actually have some people make the negative space be the thing that you pay attention to, and that demarcate what it is that you are paying attention. And I don't have an example of it right here, but you see it all the time, a lot of times in advertising, but you see people using negative space to maybe make the face of make the shape of a face. So you'll have, you know, one thing and then another thing, and in the negative space you see the shape of a face or the shape of an animal. And so that's that's something that a lot of people do as well. So that's negative space. One of the main ways that a lot of people use negative space is minimalism. So minimalism is what it sounds like. It's a very minimal picture. It's a picture that has very little detail in it and forces you to pay attention to the one or two subjects that are in the actual picture, right? So my first example of minimalism is not my picture. Go figure, right? This is a picture that was taken by one Greene. So if you can see it right here, it is a huge amount of negative space over here. And the Statue of Liberty is a subject way at the bottom, right? And so this is an example of minimalism. Anytime that you have seen this picture of the Statue of Liberty, more than likely it is a huge picture. It dominates the entire breadth of the picture. And so when you see a picture that has all of this negative space and just the Statue of Liberty here, it leaves you to start thinking about, well, what does that mean? Why is that, why is the whole point of why is the whole picture just all this blue sky and just a little bit of the Statue of Liberty? Every time I look at this picture, it shows me, or it tells me, this is just a starting point. The Statue of Liberty is a starting point, and this is all of the potential that we can have going forward. So it speaks to me not just because Clark Greene is my daughter, but because it's very important. The way that it is positioned is very important to me. So that's one aspect of minimalism. Here's another one. This is one of my favorite pictures. And this is a picture of dancers, and they were in the midst of a dance, and they were embracing each other. And what I did was I rendered it into black and white, and then I pushed all of the light so high so that all you saw were the outline of the dancers. And so in this picture, there are very little details. It's very, very much a white picture with wisps of black where the outline is. And this is another picture. This is another example of minimalism, right? And so this is where, so when you look at this picture, you don't have anything to look at. Your eyes are immediately focused on where there is actual detail in the picture. And that's what a minimalist is trying to do. A minimalist is saying, don't focus on the light, don't focus on anything else in the picture. I want you to focus on this one aspect. Right? And so minimalism is very different than this. This is a very busy picture. This has a lot of details, right? And you can make a decision as a viewer looking at that one saying, okay, I'm going to look at this part of the picture, or I'm going to look at this other part of the picture. And minimalism speaks to the absolute opposite of it. It says, I will only give you one or two things to focus on, and you can, and I will take it from there. So Here's a picture of, and so for me, here's a picture of a picture that has a lot of open space, open and negative space. But to me, this is not a minimalist picture. This still has a lot of detail. Do I focus on the foreground here? Do I focus on the little island in the back? Do I focus on the water? I can still focus on a number of different things. So even though this picture has very few details in it, it's still not a minimalist picture. And so, but this, on the other hand, is a very good example of minimalism. What I want you to focus on is the tree. Sky's beautiful, water's beautiful, but there's only one simple thing in this picture, and it's the tree. And it's dead smack in the middle of the picture. So I'm saying to you, focus on nothing else but this tree, right? And so those are the aspects, those are the ways that minimalism also works. Here's another picture, and it's a really high contrast picture of a shadow. There is nothing in this picture except for the shadow, right? Again, this is another picture by my daughter, Clark, right? And so the shadow is the only thing that's in the picture. And even the shadow doesn't have any details. The shadow is completely devoid of detail. So all of this negative space, and the only thing that you have to focus on is that shadow. And so those are examples of minimalism. And so as you are starting to look at your photography, as you are starting to look at how you want to represent things, you can start to make decisions like, do I take the whole picture, or do I move my camera so that I can only see one or two things in the frame and focus everybody's mind on that particular thing, right? Or do I utilize a lot of negative space? There's another picture in here that I really like that uses a lot of negative space. And so here's another picture of negative space. Look at all the space above it, right? I could have easily cropped this picture here, but it would have had a very, very different feel to it, right? If I crop the picture right there, it's just two women. Well, four, actually, because there are two women behind these two women, right? It's just four women at that point. But, so that doesn't really give you a lot of story. But if I give you this, then there's all of this space up here. And now your viewer has to wonder, why did he leave that space? What's up with the clouds? Are they looking up? Is this like, what's going on above them that it was cropped in that way? And that's what you want to do. You want to always evoke some level of thought. You want to evoke some level of wonder in your photography, and that's what minimalism and negative space has a lot to do. it has a lot to do with. And I think that it's a really good tool if utilized properly. You'll see people up against white walls and it's just them. The ones that I really love are when people are like wearing all white and they're up against a white wall. And so all you see is the outline of their persona and their faces and hands and stuff like that. I think that those are really great because now you just got to focus on one or two things. And when it's beautiful where it's like they're really, really small and the wall is massive, right? So there are great ways of doing this, and now you'll be able to see all of these different things. There's one of the biggest minimalisms that you see a lot of are where there are stairs coming down, and there's a wall and the wall in front of the stairs and wall behind the stairs, and then you'll just see one person walking down the stairs, right? Or one person crossing the street, right? Or the picture that I've been trying to take for many, many years now, the lonely tree in a meadow by itself. So again, these things force you into paying attention to the only thing that's in that picture. And I think that that's a great way of telling people that this is what I want you to look at. So here we are again. We've got negative space, minimalism, leading lines, rule of odd numbers, and the rule of thirds. You've got a whole kit and caboodle, right, of stuff that you can start to put in your backpack and start to play with. And if you are interested in trying to figure out how to use it, send me some stuff and I'll help you walk through it. And so again, this has been Hayden Greene. We are going to, like I said, this is going to be a short one, but make sure that if you got a tip, leave a tip. And like I said last week, if you send me $5, I will send you a surprise print. And if you hang that surprise print up and put it on social media, I will give you a $15 discount on whatever piece that you buy from the Green Light Photography store. It's a great deal. Trust me. It's a great deal. And so we've already got a bunch of people who have put in that $5. Yes, you can still purchase books online. All you've got to do is go to Amazon and type in my name or type in the name of the books. There are 3 books that are still online. And so the first one is Gradient. The second one is what's the name of my second book? Second book is Hustle City. And the third book is Life Lessons from Truth from a Professional Imposter. TJ, you can leave a tip right there on my Cash App. That's my Cash App name right there. It's pinned right at the top. So again, if you got a tip and you feel like leaving a tip, that is it right there. And I will always be available. If you want to DM me and ask me questions about photography, I am always available. And I love to talk about photography. I could geek out about this stuff all day long. So next week, Saturday, the one that I use, the third one. Yes, Life Lessons in Truth by a Professional Imposter. That is the third one. That's one of my favorite books. It's got a bunch of stuff in there. It's almost a composite book. At the end of the summer, I'm going to try to put together another book, my 4th book, and it's going to be a book of all the collections that I've done. So if you enjoyed over the years, some of the collections that I put out, everything from Starry Night to Black Tie to Windows, all of those collections will be in the books, and we're gonna put together a collaborative book and put those out. So look out for that coming. We'll put that out somewhere at the end of the summer, around November when I normally have my show. Because I don't know if we're gonna have a show this year, because we don't know if we'll have a coronavirus. Cash App, yes, TJ, Cash App, Hayden M. Greene, $ Hayden M. Greene. And so we look forward to seeing you next week. Got a surprise. Next week, I have an interesting lesson, some stuff that we can get out and do right away. And we might even be outdoors. So next week, Saturday, 5 o'clock, don't miss out. I will see you then. Have a great weekend.